radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right. Well. Welcome, Fade to Black. Bespoke Radio for the masses. Yeah. Today is Monday, November 22nd, 2021. 325 days into the new year, only 40 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of nowhere, a total undisclosed location. But it is beautiful. Yeah, man. All right. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer, and UnX Networks, I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Race Hobbs. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? It's Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving week. I kind of cheated this weekend. I was at a supermarket, and I'm, wandering through the vegetables, and I smelled turkey. And I did, right? I was like, is that gravy? I smelled mashed potato. I smelled cranberry sauce. It was like wafting. Stopped the cart. I said, man, I'll take a pound of that, a pound of that, a pound of that. They had the whole, and I cheated, man. I couldn't help myself. And it certainly was easier than cooking, an entire Thanksgiving dinner a week early. But, man, I loaded up, and it was good. It was good. So anyway, it's Thanksgiving week. And a couple of things I would like to get out there. That this week is going to be Thanksgiving here at Fade to Black. And I'm thankful for tonight. Michael Schratt is with us. He's here to talk about all that secret tech that might be in our skies. Yeah. So Michael Schratt is with us. Tomorrow night, right here, Margie K. It's been a while since Margie has been on the show. And tomorrow night, we're going to be discussing the Midwest and UFOs and UAPs. So that is tomorrow night with Margie K. Wednesday night, Dave Schrader. And he's stopping by for Schrader night. He texted me. I'm not kidding, too. I will show you. It was like midnight last night. I get this text from Schrader. Hey, man, check out my post on Twitter. I was like, what? And I go, and it's right there, Schrader to Black. Schrader night on Wednesday. It just made me laugh, and Schrader's the best. So that's going on Wednesday. Thursday, Thanksgiving dinner and all of that stuff. And after Thanksgiving dinner, I'm going to be right here with all of you for a very special Thanksgiving Fader night. Let's talk Let's talk. Let's do it. And that's going down Thursday night. And I'm sure Race Hobbs is a little upset because he wanted to take the night off, but that's not what happens. No. Let's do Fader Night with all the Fadernauts on Thanksgiving. Okay, so there you go. That is our Thanksgiving week right here on Fade to Black. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. At JChurchRadio. You're already following me. I know. But in case, we get new listeners every single day here for the first time. Heard about Fade to Black. They're here. They heard about the Sandbox. They are here. Right? They hear these things going on out there, and I get it. So follow me on Twitter if you're not. Right? The Sandbox is hashtag F2B on Twitter. We don't bite. Come and hang out with us. And I was over in the chat rooms. Oh, I didn't get a chance to say hello oh, man. All right. Well, hello to everybody in any of the chat rooms that you are in right now. Schratt to Black. Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. Schratt to Black. We need a quitspiracy. Yeah, when Jason is I think he's dipping his toes back into the community. He's been busy for the last year, and but I would love to have Jason back. Quitspiracy. Those are the days. Those are good shows. One pipe, two pipes. Those are good shows. I miss Jason. I do. Still talk to him, but he's been busy. But maybe the time is right. All right, I've got some breaking news. All right, breaking news going down right now at 9 p.m. tonight, Pacific time, in 2 hours. The Observers will be available for rent on all streaming services. 9 o'clock tonight. So if you haven't seen The Observers after the show tonight, it's available for rent. All right, I'll do all the social media posts about that tomorrow. But I decided to announce it tonight on the show. So in 2 hours, The Observers is available for rent, and all the links are the same. Just click, you can go. And right there in 2 hours. 2 hours. All right, here we go. More breaking news. The FBI is surveying a former New Jersey landfill, once condemned as an environmental disaster site, as part of the agency's long-running investigation into the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. That's right, the Teamster labor union leader who mysteriously vanished back in 1975. Federal agents visited the site on October 25th and 26th to conduct a site survey. The survey follows the deathbed confession of a former landfill worker who claimed that unidentified people charged him and his father with burying Hoffa's body in a steel barrel roughly 15 feet below the dump in 1975. The worker, his name Frank Acapella, was only 15 years old at the time when he worked alongside his father at the PJP landfill in Jersey City. Now, according to Capella, his father used an excavator to dig a large hole just outside of the boundaries of the landfill. Hoffa's body was delivered, then stuffed headfirst into a 55-gallon drum. They buried the barrel with Hoffa in it, then added 15 to 30 chemical drums on top of it and capped it all off with a bunch of dirt and bricks. There you go. Almost a ton of meteorites declared as pyrite. Okay, now let me repeat this. Almost a half a ton of meteorites declared as pyrite or on import have been seized by authorities in the southern city of Shenzhen in China's customs agency announcement earlier today. Pyrite, also known as fool's gold, I've got a bunch of it here in the studio, is an iron sulfide mineral used in paper and jewelry industries. It's not immediately clear how the owner had come across 470 kilograms of meteorites with a street value of about $9.4 million. That's a lot of meteorites. Well, here you go. This came out of the UK today. Lobsters and crabs are sentient beings and shouldn't be boiled alive. All of this according to a new UK report. Octopuses, crabs, and lobsters are capable of experiencing pain or suffering, according to a review commissioned by the UK government, which has added the creatures to a list of sentient beings to be given protection under new animal welfare laws. Can't boil them. Well, you can still boil them right now alive. And it's not law yet, but they're going to figure out a way, right? It's pretty interesting. All right. Well, also today, it's Thanksgiving week, so I thought I'd share this with you. Target, the stores, announced today that it will close all of its stores on Thanksgiving every year from this Thanksgiving 2021 and on. Target closed its stores last year on Thanksgiving due to the pandemic and had previously announced it will close this Thanksgiving too, but the change in policy was announced today. Thanksgiving, Target is closed forever. That's cool. Right on. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today, Mark Ruffalo, the Hulk. I like Mark. Today, Mark is 54 years old. Jamie Lee Curtis today is 63. Little Steven Van Zandt is 71. Great guitar player in the E Street Band, but also a great actor in The Sopranos. Talking Heads bassist Tina Weymouth today is 71. And Nickelback's moving on. Our dead guy's birthday today is Mick Rock. 1948 to 2021, died at the age of 72. Mick used his camera to create art. He photographed Queen, T-Rex, Syd Barrett, Lou Reed, Iggy Pop, the Sex Pistols, Ozzy, the Ramones, Joan Jett, the Talking Heads, Roxy Music, Thin Lizzy, right? Motley Crue, and Blondie. Often referred to as the man who shot the 70s. Most of the memorable shots of Bowie as Ziggy Stardust were shot by Mick in his gig as Bowie's official photographer. Mick was also the host of On the Record with Mick Rock, a documentary series on the Ovation Channel. The series followed him across the country, hanging out with musicians and touring their hometowns. Mick died on Staten Island in New York City on November 18th, 2021, at the age of 72. On this day in history. Okay, Brian, that is officially the funniest GIF that anybody has ever posted in hashtag F2B. Right there. Nickelback. Oh, man. On this day in history, 1963, John F. Kennedy, the 35th president of the United States, is assassinated. Fader fact. Spaghettification is the official astronomy term that explains what happens when a person falls into a black hole. Yeah. That's a fact. Tonight, very special guest Michael Schratt is with us, here to talk about all of that secret tech that might be going on, flying around in our skies right now. Tomorrow night, Margie K is here to discuss Midwest UFOs and UAPs. We're going to cover 4 states tomorrow night. 4 states. You want to tune in for that. Wednesday night, Dave Schrader stops by for Schrader Night. I can't even say that. Schrader Night. Schratt to Black. And Thursday is Thanksgiving, and I'm going to be right here after Thanksgiving dinner hanging out with all of you for Fader Night. We're going to have open lines all night long. We'll find out how many fights broke out around your table. Oh, man. You got to love Thanksgiving. It's just a fantastic holiday. All right. Rivermoon Coffee, rivermoonwellness.com. Man, I love this new microphone. I posted about it today. This Tascam TM70. It sounds like me. And I am so happy with $99. $99, man. It's an incredible microphone. And you get the shock mount. Yeah, it's a nice mic. All right. I posted today. You're not going to sound like me, but you are going to sound like you with this microphone. And highly recommend it. It's just incredible. It's great sounding. Okay. And this is flat, by the way. No EQ, straight in. It's a good mic. And you get a mic like this, it's dynamic. You can use it for anything. You can use it for anything. All right. Where am I at? rivermoonwellness.com. All right. They have an amazing Black Friday sale going on right now. Is it Black Friday yet? Oh, no. That happens on Friday. I did a Black Friday purchase today, though. I got a discount code sent to me, 15% off, and I used it. I use that thing so, bam. All right. Where am I at? Okay. Earlier today, John Burroughs. John, if you're listening, I got this email from John, hot off the presses. And it was a link to Tim McMillan's article over at The Debrief. They just released this article called Former Defense Officials Weigh In on Proposed UAP Legislation. That's the headline. I was like, okay, I'm in. Thank you, John. So I lifted some of the facts from Tim's article to present here. And I want to thank Tim, and I will thank him at the end of this, too, as well. So in early November, U.S. Senator Kristen Gillibrand, Democrat out of New York, submitted an amendment for consideration in the fiscal year 2022 National Defense Authorization Act, NDDA H.R. 4350, detailing expansive requirements for the U.S. military and intelligence community in addressing unidentified aerial phenomena, otherwise known as UAPs, commonly known as UFOs. Entitled, The Establishment of Structure and Authorities to Address Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, and quote, Gillibrand's proposal outlines the establishment of an Anomaly Surveillance Tracking and Resolution Office known as ASTRO. The newly formed office would be responsible for extensive investigations into reputed sightings of UAP. If passed, the bill would represent the most comprehensive legislation targeting the lingering mystery of UFOs since the 1969 closure of Air Force's Project Blue Book. Now, according to the proposed UAP legislation, in addition to collecting and analyzing UAP incidents, the newly formed Anomaly Surveillance Tracking and Resolution Office, ASTRO, would be tasked with investigating adverse physiological effects claimed to have been caused by UAP encounters. Individuals' claims of suffering adverse health effects represent one of the least discussed but most concerning aspects of claimed UAP encounters. Now, the proposed UAP legislation also includes a section detailing the establishment of a 20-person, quote, Aerial and Transmedium Phenomena Advisory Committee. Committee members would include persons from other U.S. government agencies such as NASA and the FAA, along with academic organizations like the Galileo Project at Harvard University. So far, the amendment appears to have strong bipartisan support amongst the lawmakers. First mentioned by researcher Douglas Dean Johnson, the proposed UAP legislation has already garnered several notable sponsors and co-sponsors, including Senator Marco Rubio out of Florida, Senator Martin Heinrich out of New Mexico, and Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, and Senator Roy Blunt from Missouri. Now, or Montana, Missouri, M.O. And Montana's MT. M.O. is Missouri. I never got that figured out. Now, Johnson, who closely follows UAP congressional action, has become a foremost source for current updates on UAP action on Capitol Hill, providing frequent updates on his blog and Twitter. Johnson says that the bipartisan support for the legislation is encouraging, but not uncommon with national security matters, but cautions that enactment of the Gillibrand-Rubio Amendment is far from a foregone conclusion. As of November 22nd, there have been 4 minor revisions to the amendment since initial November 4th introduction. The most significant revision being a change of name for the new UAP office from the Anomaly Surveillance and Resolution Office, ASRO, to the Anomaly Surveillance Tracking and Resolution Office, to be named ASTRO. 3 separate sources from Capitol Hill who are intimately familiar with the legislation told the debrief that they expect the name of the new UAP office to be again changed in upcoming revisions. The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security each fall under different executive departments. Outside of the Department of Defense, by the way, each of those agencies are said to be supportive of the current UAP efforts, and of those agencies, they have assisted the DoD's UAP task force. However, those departments' involvement have been at will and not mandated by formal policy. Now, as we await to see if the amendment will be included in the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act, ultimately it will be signed into law by the president. Now, this is, for me, and I do want to thank Tim McMillan of The Debrief for his excellent reporting on this. It's a great article, and visit thedebrief.org for his full article. It's long, it's comprehensive, and it would have taken me 2 days to go through the whole thing here on the air. But go and check out all of that from Tim McMillan over at The Debrief. It's the lead article when you go to the website. All right, now this is what I find exciting about this. Gillibrand has been all over social media and this proposal. It is very encouraging. And for somebody like John Burroughs that reads this and sees this and everything that he has gone through with Rendlesham through to this day, and his struggle with not only with UAPs, but his health issues. And the specific wording in this amendment about the health issues and things that could and does happen to individuals that encounter and come in contact with UAPs. This is important. And going beyond that, this is a conversation that I have to stress that is once again happening in our nation's capital about UFOs and UAPs. And we have never been at this point in history. Is the government our friend? No. It's through the efforts of John Burroughs and others inside of this UFO community that have absolutely kept this out front and part of the conversation for decades. Decades. Rendlesham was 40 years ago. And I don't want anyone here to think that, oh, this is happening now and the government is our friend. No, the government is cooperating with us right now because we are forcing them to cooperate. If this community wasn't speaking up, if this community hasn't spoke up for the last 50 years, they wouldn't be saying a thing. And we have to continue to keep our foot on the neck of Washington, D.C. I stress it enough. I stress it every day on this show. And that's where we are. I am so happy to see this, but we can't rest. I have said very publicly that if we choose, not only as a community, but as a world, to just sit back right now and think that everything is going to take care of itself, that the hard work is over. No, the hard work has just begun. We've gotten this thing to this point. We've got to keep the pressure on. We have to keep talking about it. Movies like The Observers, and coming out in a couple of weeks is another film called Extraordinary, The Revelations. All of this does its part. So let's do this together. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, right here on this program, Michael Schratt is with us. We're going to be talking about all that secret tech that might be flying in the skies above us. UFOs, UAPs, ET. Yeah, all that and much more. Tomorrow night, Margie K is here. We're going to be talking about Midwest UFOs and UAPs. Wednesday night, the one and only Dave Schrader is stopping by for Schrader night. And Thursday is Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving dinner, I'm going to come into the bunker and hang out with all of you for open lines all night long. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer and UnX Networks. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back with Michael Schratt. Stay with me.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
The new KUNXDB, the UNX Network, bringing you the best in paranormal programming in premium high-definition streaming audio and video. Log on to the network at unxnetwork.com and check out the growing lineup of programs, including Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and many more. Sign up for the free UNX newsletter, follow the UNX blog, or pick up the latest edition of the UNX magazine. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So check us out at unxnetwork.com. Tap the show page and the calendar so you never miss your favorite live shows and podcasts. We are your portal for all things paranormal. The X, explaining the unexplained.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Naval, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Manson. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Thanksgiving week here at Fade to Black. Tonight, Michael Schratt. Tomorrow night, Margie K. Wednesday night, Dave Schrader night. And then Thursday, after Thanksgiving dinner, I'm going to come into the bunker and hang out with all of you, and we're going to have open lines all night long. All right. But tonight, it's Michael Schratt joining us to discuss the secret U.S. technology that may be in the skies right now. And what are UAPs and UFOs using for propulsion systems? And the ultimate question, is it us or them? All of that and much more tonight with Michael. He is a private pilot, military, aerospace historian. He has lectured across the country on the unique subject of mystery aircraft, classified propulsion systems, and all of the secret stuff in the military-industrial complex. He devotes much of his free time researching aerospace technical documents, conducting interviews, and traveling to multiple university archives. It is his belief it is our right to question authority and demand an accounting of unacknowledged special access programs that bypass congressional oversight and public scrutiny. Man, that's heavy. That's heavy, Schratt. Welcome, Michael. How you doing, man?
Hi, Jimmy.
And you know, you've been at this for so long, Michael, and I enjoy your company and our conversations. But did you ever expect the conversation of UFOs and UAPs to be, you know, a part of the media and pop culture like it is today?
Well, I'm glad it is, but I still feel we have a long way to go. You know, I really do. And before we begin, Jimmy, I want to ask you, what inspires you to do what you do?
Guest like you. Nice. Well, see, what inspires me, it is the same thing that drives you. I've seen stuff. I'm confused about what may be in the skies, and when you see those, you know, those life-changing, paradigm-shifting moments, right, and you see those and witness them, you know that there is something going on. And right. And I've been at this since I was a kid. I started this when I was 9 years old. 9 years old, wow. Eric Von Daniken, 1971, 1972. And my best friend at the time, his name was John. We were into science fiction and Space 1999 and UFO and the $6 Million Man and those things that were happening back then. Anyway, I went to the library, got out an encyclopedia, and flipped open UFOs, and I started reading and looking at these pictures, and that started the quest. You know, and wow, I haven't stopped since.
Wow, that's great.
This. I'm sure you have the same story.
Basically, yeah. I mean, once it grabs you, and you know, if you really feel inspired and motivated, it won't let go. It won't let go.
Have you? I don't know if I've asked you this in all the times that we have talked. Have you had your own sighting?
Only at the test site, but I don't think it was anything extraterrestrial. I think it was a flare. So no, I have not had a legitimate sighting.
What test site?
Remote test site in Nevada.
Okay, but there's 100 of those. Which one?
The one that we all love.
Can you say the words?
Let's see. We could call it the ranch.
The ranch. Okay, I call it the ranch.
Okay.
Wasn't that the original? See, you're such a traditionalist. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what it was called when it was first built back in the 1950s?
Yeah, that's right. That's one of the nicknames it had.
Dreamland.
Sure, one of the nicknames.
Yeah. Well, of course, we're talking about Area 51. And when you say a flare, this is interesting. So you have the sighting. Were you debunking it, right, in your own mind? I
just don't think it was anything, really interesting. No, I think it was a flare. I could be wrong, but what I saw was nothing fantastic or impressive. No.
Now,
I haven't had a Hudson Valley sighting. No, I have not.
Well, I have. See, I'm going to share something with you. The audience has heard this a few times since it happened. But as you know, I'm out here in Palmdale now. And when I'm going to give you the abridged version. I'm just going to get straight to the chase. But when I was looking for homes, I was down here and I was staying in a hotel overnight and meeting my real estate agent the next day. And so that night I was standing out in front of the hotel and I was just, man, Edwards Air Force Base is right there. Right. Yeah. So I pop it up on my GPS. It's like 9:00 at night. I was actually leaving the hotel to go get some fast food. Okay. That was my plan. I did later. So anyway, I jump in the Jeep and I'm following my GPS and I end up at the south side of Edwards at the fence line, no trespassing, all of that warning stuff. And I get out of the Jeep and I walk up across the road and I'm standing there. And right in front of me at that moment was this object in the sky that I didn't see at first. I only saw the lights on it and it kind of flickered. And then it went and lit up the bottom of it in this circle. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? I mean, I just couldn't believe it. And then it went black. Couldn't see it. And as I'm looking in that spot, it's fluttered again. I don't have another way to describe it. And it did it again. This ring of lights. And so then I grabbed my cell phone. I'm ready. And nothing happened. I stood there for another 25 minutes. Nothing happened. Right. And so I didn't get a bit. Anyway, I get in the Jeep and I'm driving back to the hotel and I'm debunking it in my mind. It was something on top of a pole. It was something, for the aircraft. It was there, it's some kind of radio tower. I'm just, because, man, if that was a flying saucer, that was crazy. So I went back the next day, early in the morning, or right after breakfast, and I went, I'm gonna go back. So I followed my GPS, and I was able to go to the exact spot. Saw my tire tracks, pulled over, and went across. There's my footprints in the dirt, and I looked, and there's nothing there. It's nothing. It's just blue sky. And I'm looking right at the same angle. And so where I saw it last night, and it wasn't high, it was like straight out in front of me. There's nothing there. Now, is this just Palmdale, right? Is this what happened? Now, I haven't seen it again, by the way. Right. I've seen a lot of strange things out here, a lot of aircraft, a lot of cool things. But I haven't seen that particular object again. And so when you hear something like that, my thing is, if you haven't, come hang out in Palmdale. We'll go out into the desert, and you never know what you're going to see.
Well, you're in the heart of it there, for sure. For sure.
When I describe something like that, and you know about these secret access programs and all of the facilities that are out here, and the testing that goes on, not only in Palmdale, but 10 miles to the north at Edwards, does this surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me, Jimmy, and I have a couple of cases that I want to review with your audience tonight, if we can.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So let's dive into a couple of historical cases. A few of these we've covered before, but I think it's always good to go through again really briefly here. So the first case I want to talk about is this famous Temple, Oklahoma case. This is now March 23rd, 1966, on the Temple, Oklahoma, basically the border there. And a man by the name of Eddie Laxon, who was an electrical engineer working at Shepherd Air Force Base. And you can verify this by going to the National Archives in Washington, D.C., and you can pull up the Project Blue Book files. This case is there. This is my favorite Project Blue Book case. So it's about 5:05 in the morning. He's heading to work, and the sun is just coming up. He's heading towards Shepherd Air Force Base. And right in the middle of the road, blocking the road, which can be described as a bowling pin that tipped over. That's what it looks like. That's the best way to describe it. A bowling pin that tipped over. Some describe it as a perch or a fish. And so he stops his car. He gets out of the vehicle, and he's looking at this 75-foot-long bowling pin that's blocking the road. It's sitting on lunar landing gear legs. It has an air stair door on the right-hand side. On the forward part of the craft, there's a bubble canopy that looks like it was stolen off a B-26 from World War II. That big bubble plexiglass canopy, that was up at front. There were 2 high-intensity lights shining forward and then 2 shining down as well. Now, right next to that air stair door, there was a man, according to Eddie Laxon. There was a man there. He had 2-piece military fatigues on. He was wearing a baseball cap with the bill turned up. Above him and slightly further aft, there was this spire or a stinger that came off the back top of this craft and tapered back and terminated into about a 9-inch diameter silver chrome polished mirror reflective ball. Below that spire or stinger, there was another 3-foot diameter porthole that had a divider into 4 equal pie segments. Just aft of that porthole window, Jimmy, there were the letters written in black, TL 4768, written on this craft. At the very end of this craft, there were very small control surfaces that appeared to be way too small to have any type of reaction to flight controls. I mean, these things were tiny. This thing is 75 feet long. It's about 8 feet tall. Now, when this man, he called him a man, and he also had ranking chevrons on his shoulder too, in addition to the baseball cap. When he saw that he was being looked at by Eddie Laxton, he scurried up that ladder. He closed the air stair door, and this is all in the Project Blue Book report. And also David Marler gave me a copy of the 16-page report that he had. So we have multiple sources for this. He closed the door, and then Eddie Laxton said that there was a high-pitched drilling noise. This craft hovered off the ground about 6 feet and then took off like a spark on a grinding wheel and made no sonic boom whatsoever. And this is back in 1966. And truck drivers saw it as well. Now, I didn't just stop there because I pulled up, because I like to dig deep on this. I pulled up the newspaper article. I have it right in front of me here. Now, I want to give your audience the reference for this so they can verify it on their own. This is from the Daily Oklahoman, March 1st, 1971. This is Eddie Laxton speaking here. He says, quote, "What I saw was definitely not from space. The man was wearing fatigues and had a cap with the bill broken up like Air Force mechanics wear," Laxton said. Quote, "It had common English letters on it." He's referring to the TL 4768. So, according to Eddie Laxton, and the truck drivers that saw it as well, because he wasn't the only witness, it certainly appears, Jimmy, that we've made a breakthrough.
Now, when and I've got the original files that you gave me on this case, sure. And I've poured over that many times. It's so interesting, but this is what would suggest to me is there is some kind of anti-gravitic propulsion system here that was being used in the 60s that would suggest a lot of things that we are seeing in the skies today. I mean, that's what stands out, right?
Well, look at what the eyewitnesses are telling us here. Every time I hear about one of these craft, virtually every time, I always hear about just prior to these craft departing or levitating off the ground, they make a high-pitched drilling noise.
Right.
And then they depart. So what I'm thinking is they're powering something up. You know, he closed this air stair door, and then immediately there was this high-pitched drilling noise. The frequency went up, and then this thing levitated and took off almost every time. Time after time, we hear the same thing on almost all these cases.
Yeah, and the traditional things that we would be used to, acclimated to, is, you know, jet engines, airfoils, propellers, rocket engines, right. Something analog, right, if you will, to get these off of the ground, and that's not the case here.
No, that's not the case because there were no visible means of propulsion. There were no wings, virtually no flight controls, no visible engine. So, yeah, there's someone's made a breakthrough. I think it's clear to say at this point someone's made a breakthrough.
Now, before we move on, where do you think this breakthrough comes from?
Good old-fashioned American ingenuity. I really do.
You're going to go there.
I think they've poured billions into this, and we're going to get something for our money. And you can track the historical legacy of this research going all the way through the newspaper clippings. October 1954, 1955, they had multiple universities working to, quote-unquote, crack the gravity barrier. You hook that up with Lonnie Zamora's case. There was also a high-pitched drilling noise there as well. And then an exhaust nozzle with blue flames coming out of the bottom of it that just doesn't sound like extraterrestrial. So when you put this all together and you tie that in with the newspaper clippings, how they were desperate, literally desperate to break the gravity barrier. To me personally, it's clear that they've made a breakthrough. It's very clear.
Now, what about the current tech that we know about? I'm specifically talking like the B-2 bomber, where it seems to me, I'm not an engineer or a technician at any level, but it seems like there is some technology there that goes beyond jet engines.
I've heard those thoughts as well. That's a little bit difficult to pin down. I've seen the patents that are allegedly associated with that, but I've also heard that it's just plain old-fashioned jet engines as well. It could be something else. Don't know. I'd leave that open. But, you know, certainly there's multiple tiers of this technology. You've got your garden variety, vanilla F-16s, F-15s. You've got B-2s that were, you know, partially black at one time, then went, you know, kind of in the gray world. And then there's that third tier that our good friend Mark McCandlish had talked about.
And when you hear the testimony, the eyewitness accounts of the Tic Tac, does that suggest to you anti-gravitic technology in our possession?
Well, think about this. If they made the breakthrough in October 1954, and they've been pumping billions of dollars into this, and they are desperate, as desperate or more desperate than building the atomic bomb, and they've thrown all this research and all this money into it, they are going to procure for something for their money. There's no question about it. You know, to think that the B-1 or the B-2 is the best we've got, I think just goes against the logic of what's been done, what's been spent.
Now, how would, and I want your theory on this, how would an anti-gravitic what what's the fuel source? I mean, this isn't a Briggs and Stratton motor, right? Where it's way beyond that. So,
well, what I've been told is that the first rule, and I don't want to get too deep here, but the first rule is throw out Newtonian physics. That's the first rule. Think more in terms of quantum physics. That's what we have to look at. Throw out Newtonian physics altogether. These craft do not operate on the laws of Newtonian physics. We're talking about a completely different ball game here.
Well, okay. So I could understand getting away from Newtonian physics, and even though his math on gravity still applies today, right? Okay, so. But if we get away from Newtonian physics, what would it be, though?
Well, part of it is going to be high voltage electrical fields. That's one. The other part of it is going to be super chilled superconductors down to minus 274. And in order to do that, you need liquid nitrogen. And that could be why we're seeing on the bottom of these craft all these tubes, pipes, and cylinders as a way to move and cool and super chill these superconductors. Now, that's just my thought. I could be wrong. But if you look at the testimony of all these eyewitnesses, you go back to the Hudson Valley Boomerang, go back to the January 5th, 2000 Southern Illinois Triangle. You can go back to the 1989-1990 Belgium Triangle. They all have this tapestry and motif that goes through all these cases, even though they're separated by time and space. We keep hearing the same eyewitness accounts of the understructure of these craft are full of pipes and cylinders. Some describe these things as looking like stacked Legos, a very mechanical understructure on these vehicles.
Now, and staying with this, there has been a lot of conversation and evidence going back to World War II. About fast spinning, liquid mercury and and electromagnetic and magnets rotating at a high RPM to create an anti-gravitic situation. But then we have Operation Paperclip. And were the progenitors in Germany that was brought over here?
Well, that's always been the legend, hasn't it, Jimmy?
Yes.
That's always been the legend. And personally, I feel there's a kernel of truth to that legend. Yes, I do. Yes.
And which would go back to mechanical, ingenuity, or did it come from somewhere else? I know that von Braun's boss over in Germany said that over here in the United States that we had help, but the help came from above.
That's right. I remember hearing that too. Yes.
And would that surprise you?
It wouldn't surprise me. Although that's hard to prove, isn't it? That's the $64 million question. Have we had help, and can we prove it?
Well,
can we prove it?
Yeah, the jumps. If we go back, you brought up Mark McCandlish, and these jumps, these leaps in technology were happening very, very quickly when the rest of the world was trying to figure out, a microwave oven, and I'm talking about the 50s and 60s, but yet. Huge jumps in technology were going on in the background, and where does this come from? Is somebody just
let me try to dive into that a little bit too. Okay, so you will recall that in July of 1977, Leonard Stringfield gave a lecture at the International MUFON Symposium just down the road from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, coincidentally during that time frame. Mm-hmm. Now, this was a groundbreaking presentation because the whole terminology of UFO crash retrievals back in 77 was still basically brand new. It was really brand new. And so during the lecture, when Leonard is talking about some of these cases from his status reports, which are now available on Amazon, you can get the entire 4 or 5 status reports in one volume now, and you can read all about it. It's really good material. Well, during maybe about 50% into his lecture, there were hecklers at the MUFON Symposium because people, they just couldn't handle this. they were thinking, where's your documentation? Where's your proof? And of course, Leonard didn't have the resources to verify every one of the, I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this. And the agreement was that he would never reveal the names of his sources. And so you can understand why the audience was really upset. I mean, he's making these incredible claims, and we don't have a name to tie it to or a way to verify it. And it's always been the case. So it was a frustrating, and Richard Hall, who's now deceased, he had to step in and remind the audience that this was, the best speculation based on these alleged firsthand eyewitnesses that saw the bodies, that saw the craft, and were on the retrieval teams. That's the caliber of witnesses that Leonard had been speaking to. Now, you'll recall that in 2012, there were 78 three-ring binders that were delivered to MUFON HQ. And that's been available to researchers. I was able to get access to the binders, and I spent 3 days going through all of those. And a very strange thing happened, Jimmy. Maybe this happened to you. I have never in my life felt hours go by like minutes. I'm serious. Hours went by like minutes when I was going through these binders. Now, to boil this all down, there was one case within these 78 three-ring binders, which is the part of the historical collection of Leonard Stringfield. There was one case that I think really stands out. It really stands out. Now, this is the 1963 Marine case. This took place December 1963, literally weeks after Kennedy was assassinated, November 22nd, 1963. And it's funny because today is November 22nd. So
right.
Maybe there's something there. So this Marine he's awoken from a deep sleep, and this is in the Leonard Stringfield collection. He is told to board a plane that had blacked out windows, and he flew in this plane from Cherry Point, North Carolina, 3 hours to some location that he doesn't know. He didn't even know where this thing was. Could have been a Navy facility.
And I'm going to jump in right there. We need to take a break.
Yep.
Okay, that's a perfect spot to do it because I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay.
Our guest tonight, Michael Schratt. We're going to be talking about all of that secret stuff that may be going on in the skies directly above our heads right now. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
The new KUNXDB, the UNX Network, bringing you the best in paranormal programming in premium high-definition streaming audio and video. Log on to the network at unxnetwork.com and check out the growing lineup of programs, including Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and many more. Sign up for the free UNX newsletter, follow the UNX blog, or pick up the latest edition of the UNX magazine. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So check us out at unxnetwork.com. Tap the show page and the calendar so you never miss your favorite live shows and podcasts. We are your portal for all things paranormal. The X, explaining the unexplained.
Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now. Fadernauts, when you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Michael Schratt joins us. Spends all of his time researching aerospace technical documents. That's what he does. What a wealth of knowledge. And right before the break, we were talking about the 1963 Marine case, Michael. Before we get back to that, I just got this text. And does Michael have any ideas on the mirror-like finish heat shields on an F-22 Raptor flying out of Nellis? Do you know anything about that?
I can't say that I do. No.
Okay, that's interesting though. That's Michael's taking notes. Let's get okay. So what happened? 1963, Marine gets woken up and put on a plane and flown to where?
Okay, so he's put on a plane with blacked out windows, and he's flown 3 hours from Cherry Point, North Carolina. They land at a location that not even he knew where it was. So it could have been a Navy facility, could have been an Army facility, could have been an Air Force facility. He was never told where this was, so we don't know where this was. But it was 3 hours by plane from Cherry Point, North Carolina. We do know that. So he gets off the plane. He goes to this building. They open up these two bypass doors, and Jimmy's sitting right in the center of this, we can call it a hangar, is a 40-foot diameter, highly polished mirror reflective flying saucer that looked like a fat hamburger. 40 feet in diameter, it was 15 feet tall. The entire area was very well lit, extremely well lit. Literally no shadows on the ground, very well lit. Around the outer circumference, Jimmy, there were 9 elliptically shaped windows that were smoky gray in color. They were opaque. You could not see into the craft because they were just too dark. And he also said, I interviewed the gentleman who actually interviewed the Marine. I know his name, and I've been trying to track this guy down. So he said that there was a 1-inch lip between the outer skin of the craft itself and the outer part of the window of the smoky colored elliptical windows. So there was a 1-inch lip there. Okay, now he also said, this is interesting, the entire craft was propped up above the hangar floor on scaffolding, and they built a catwalk around this thing, a round catwalk, so that you could walk around this thing, and then you could walk under it as well. So they had these lab coat technicians that were walking around this, under this craft, and he said that at the very bottom of the craft, there was a hatch entryway that was so fully integrated into the skin of the craft you could not put a razor blade into it. That's how tight the seams were on this thing. Okay, now, next thing is, he also mentioned that during this time frame that he was there, he was guarding this thing. His job was to guard this craft for a period of 2 weeks. And he mentioned that there were multiple times where he saw these white lab coat technicians. They were trying to breach the hull of this craft. So the first thing they tried was a diamond tip drill bit. That didn't work. I mean, literally made no effect whatsoever. Then they tried an acetylene torch. That didn't work. Then he said the last thing they tried is they brought in 2 18-wheeler tractor trailers. Each had a very high voltage electrical power source on it. And then they had these 3-inch gauge wide thick cables that ran from the trailer into this hangar, and they were using a laser. And they tried to breach or cut into the hull of this craft with a laser, and that didn't work either. He also heard, quote unquote, bodies associated with this craft. And in one instance, but in only one instance, just one time only, he was left alone with this craft. He had a small Minox camera, Jimmy, and he actually snapped a photograph of this thing. He actually took a photograph. All right. Now, he also mentioned that painted directly below this craft, there was a white circle. And his job was to shoot to kill, not ask questions, but shoot to kill anyone who attempted to breach that circle. There was a U.S. Navy admiral who was walking up to this thing. He got within seconds of being shot by this Marine. All right, the last day he was there, he saw this craft being loaded on a 18-wheeler tractor trailer. They put a tarp over the craft. They put chains over the tarp and were moving it to the other location. Now, what happened to the photo, right?
Right.
According to the gentleman that I interviewed who interviewed this Marine, that photograph was lost in a flood in 1983. So this evidence that we're all looking for is always 2 steps ahead of us. However, it doesn't quite end there. I was able to secure actual sketches of the craft from the Marine and also from the gentleman who interviewed this Marine. So I've got 2 sets of sketches. I've got about 10 pages of handwritten notes describing this whole encounter in great detail, stuff that Leonard Stringfield didn't have. So I ended up doing an AutoCAD drawing of the craft itself showing the attempted points of entry. And then I also did another AutoCAD drawing showing this craft propped up on scaffolding, and then commissioned artwork, full color artwork, showing the engineers and military MPs surrounding this craft propped up on the scaffolding. And just got done today commissioning new artwork where we did an enlarged blow up showing one of these lab coat technicians with a diamond tip drill bit attempting to breach the hull of this craft. So this is all December 1963.
Now, okay, so the questions are many. If they're trying to breach the hull, that means it's not ours. Where did it come from? Was it a crash? Was it given to us?
He was never told. He was never told. He was never told where it came from. His job was strictly to guard it for 2 weeks. That's it.
Did he ever say why him? Why he was chosen?
Because he had a high level security clearance, and he had apparently some type of nuclear clearance as well. So he was well suited for that job.
Did he ever go inside of the craft?
Nope. I don't know if anyone ever went inside. I mean, I've got his sketch where it shows this entry hatch and then these dots right on the seam of this entry hatch. That's where they were putting that diamond chip drill bit, and they could not get into this thing.
And where was it taken? Okay, so 3 hours from the East Coast. That says to me, the first thing that comes to mind is Wright Pat.
Well, it wouldn't have taken that long to. Well, they could have brought it there, but the question is, where did this actually take place? That's the real question. So if you draw a circumference, a radius from that point, now, here's what I try to do. What evidence, supporting evidence, can we find to actually verify this case? Is there anything that can help to verify this? 2 years ago, Jimmy, Charlotte Mann, who's intimately connected to the Cape Girardeau crash retrieval story of April 1941, she gave a lecture at IUFOC. She said some things in her lecture that I don't think anybody else picked up on, which I'm surprised at. So what she talked about is she mentioned that she was very good friends with 4-star Major General Melvin F. McNichol. He was the base commander at Tinker Air Force Base. And I've got his obituary here. He's a real man. The Daily Oklahoma, July 11th, 1986. That's the reference for this. Tinker Commander Melvin McNichol dies. Daily Oklahoma, July 11th, 1986. So here's the part that brings Charlotte Mann into this. Charlotte Mann was very good friends with this Melvin McNichol, and they both had an interest in UFOs. So Charlotte came to the general and said, General, we've been friends for years now, and we both have this mutual interest in UFOs. Can you tell me anything? Can you give me anything? I mean, we've been friends for years, and you've never even told me anything. Are we still friends anymore? So he turns to Charlotte and says, Charlotte, if you ever repeat what I'm about to tell you, not only will I deny it, it could ruin my career. And so he proceeds to tell Charlotte the following things. Number one, he did see a UFO, and it was in, quote unquote, the West. Okay. Second thing he told her is that they had propped this flying saucer up on scaffolding, and they built a catwalk around it. Isn't that interesting? Then he said that there were bodies recovered and one was still alive. Jimmy, this is nearly identical to what the Marine told the gentleman who eventually got in contact with Leonard Stringfield. He talked about this catwalk that they built. They had scaffolding. They propped it up on scaffolding. You could walk around this thing. It was in the West. So if you fly from 3 hours by Cherry Point, North Carolina, 3 hours, that puts you in the range of the West. It's a stretch, but it puts you within range of the West. So that checks out. And then the comments of bodies being recovered and one was still alive, that checks out too. So these two people separated by time and space are confirming virtually the identical story. When I heard that from Charlotte, I said, boom, I got it.
Well, okay, so when you say good old-fashioned ingenuity, right? Okay, I don't discount that. We've got a lot of bright people here.
Right.
But that's 1963, and that propulsion system, whatever it is, we may not have understood it, but it would have given us ideas.
Sure.
Now,
correct.
Now, going back to this Marine, did he say, I understand the propped up, was there anything, any landing gear, from the craft itself?
No, just think of a Big Mac, a Whopper, but chrome aluminum sort of elliptical shape with elliptical shaped windows, 9 elliptical shaped windows wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft. That's what the craft looked like. It looked like a fat hamburger with opaque windows, and then a hatchway on the bottom that was as tight as the Giza Plateau in Cairo, where you cannot put a razor blade into the seams of the blocks there. That's how fully integrated these seams were into the craft.
Now, when Dr. Eric Davis had that famous quote last year in the New York Times where he said, well, the quote was attributed to him, where he said that he briefed the Senate Intelligence Committee and told them that we have vehicles not of this earth in our possession. And
well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, if we're to believe the Marine, it seems like it could be a possibility. But again, how do we prove this? All roads appear to lead to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. However, there also appears to be temporary holding repositories for bodies and debris and craft at Langley Air Force Base, MacDill Air Force Base, and Homestead, Florida as well. So if you could ever get to the vaults there, you might find something there too.
Now, and what about Edwards? And I was reading something about Edwards earlier today about a crash retrieval that happened to the north of Edwards Air Force Base.
Edwards plays a big role in this. Absolutely.
And if you were a betting man, would you say that the action is at Area 51, or would it be elsewhere now that Area 51 is so popular?
No, I'm still a firm believer that all roads lead to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for a number of reasons. They have the Foreign Technology Division there. They've got the aeromedical labs there. They've got all the tools that they would need to begin a reverse engineering process. So yeah, my bet is on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but that's not the only location.
Now, if this 1963 Marine case is to be believed, and I have no reason to discount it, when the Department of Defense and the DIA and their report that they released on June 25th states that they don't know what's going on, right? They don't have any answers. It's not us, but we don't know. And then you have this 1963 case right here, which clearly would suggest that they know a lot.
Yeah, but here's the question. Who's they, right? Because whoever is the bean counters at the Pentagon, they don't have a need to know. They don't have a high enough security clearance. Obviously, they weren't briefed for this or cleared for this, so they wouldn't know. I mean, when you talk about UFO crash retrievals, we are talking about the crown jewels of America. This is the absolute crown jewels of America, and you're not going to read about it in your local newspaper. This is the best of the best, the top of the top. This is beyond top secret. And you can see why they wouldn't want to keep this close hold, because if they were able to breach the hull of the craft and figure out the molecular structure of how the skin of this thing works, and they can integrate it into our fighter aircraft, now you can rule the skies.
Well, and I agree with you. Why would Dr. Eric Davis just blurt this out publicly and allow the New York Times to publish a statement like that?
Again, how do you prove it? How do you prove it? I mean, this sounds wonderful. It sounds great, but where is the physical evidence to prove it? That's what people are looking for, and we were close to getting it. He actually took a photograph of this thing. He was probably 10 feet away from it when he took a photograph of it. That photograph would still be here if that flood didn't happen in '83. So again, we were just so close to the evidence.
Now, the Special Access Program, SAPs, probably haven't been talked about ever before like they are today. Special access programs. And it seems that those, I'm talking about politicians and legislators that fund these projects, and also back into the military, this money goes somewhere and then it seems to disappear. And the programs themselves are separated from each other. Corporations are on a need-to-know basis, whether it's Northrop or McDonnell Douglas or or Lockheed, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. Everything is an unknown. How do we get to these special access programs as taxpayers?
If you don't have a need to know, Jimmy, you're not going to know. It doesn't matter what your rank is. It doesn't matter if you're president of the United States. If you don't have a need to know, they are not going to read you into that program. And that's final. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're the president. He is a temporary employee. That's it. He's out in 4 years. They're never going to brief him on that. And we're talking about the crown jewels here. They are never going to release it to a temporary employee.
No, and your research and your contacts, when you bring up these conversations, where do those conversations lead?
Well, sometimes they hit a brick wall, and that's happened before too. And that's okay, because that's part of the quest, right? We want to maintain an important part of our national history without violating national security. And so it's kind of a fine line. But again, remember that the Air Force is strictly a temporary custodian of these assets, okay? Because it's the taxpayer that owns the planes, owns the buildings, pays the pilots, pays all the people who work there. We own the runways. The taxpayer owns this. So the Air Force is a temporary custodian for these assets. That's important to keep in mind as well.
One of the things that I find fascinating is I can drive around these facilities in the middle of the day. There's 2 huge runways there, covered with hangars, and you see the cars, you see everything up, but there's never a plane. There's never a plane on the runway.
Well, you're at the heart of the military-industrial complex, Air Force Plane 42. You cannot get any closer. That is it, Jimmy. You are there.
Air Force Plant 42, right?
That is it. It doesn't get any higher than that.
And you never see a plane, right? So the action is at night, and I feel a little bit guilty as an American citizen talking about what I see. Right? I could come on the air every night. I could post videos and things, and I feel like I could get myself into trouble. And maybe some stuff shouldn't be discussed. But I see stuff taking off all night long, right? All night, but not during the day.
Well, again, you're right in the middle of the action. That's the space shuttle was built there. The B-2 was built there. Who knows what else was built there, right? But it just doesn't get any better than Air Force Plant 42, for sure.
I made this comment a couple of weeks ago, and I'm driving, and I noticed that one of the parking lots at one of these facilities on a Sunday was packed. Thousands of cars. Thousands.
Wow.
On a Sunday afternoon. So they're in full production of something. I just don't know what it is. Right? It's not like it's a ghost town. Oh, no.
Right.
No, it's very interesting. Now, I wanted to go back. You brought up Mark McCandlish, and we'll talk more about Mark after the break. Sure. But he was a close friend of yours, and
absolutely,
and somebody I have so much respect for. But here's the deal with the ARV and that particular reproduction vehicle. This was done, and his drawings about this, and the breakout drawing was done from descriptions of not only what was in the sky, but what was in a couple of presentations inside of a hangar, and that there were multiple versions of this, bigger versions, smaller versions. But that was a propulsion system that didn't seem so alien to me. It seemed like it was just good tech.
Well, all I can say, Jimmy, is I'm going to leave that a part of Mark's legacy.
How so?
That's really all I can say about it. I don't think I'm allowed to discuss further on that particular subject.
But
that's part of Mark's legacy.
Well,
so.
yeah. Okay. But what I'm suggesting here is that was an alien reproduction vehicle. So it was reproduced from something else not of this earth, right?
That's what the name says, right?
Well,
if we're to believe it.
And well, there's another part to this for me, that the skin, the outside of it was just a covering. It wasn't really anything there for aerodynamics or any consideration of that. The propulsion system was internal, so you didn't need an elaborate skin or something aerodynamic.
Oh, that's true. Well, that's true. I mean, it wasn't flying on the Bernoulli's principle of lift, that's for sure. So, yeah.
And we're going to take a break right here. But the other part with this, it just seemed that the craft, and I have Mark autographed a big blueprint for me. It's one of my treasured pieces that I have. That it seemed the way that the seats were placed at the top, that it was a very simplistic, right, where we picture Independence Day, and that maybe we should take another look at this. And it's actually, if ET is doing it, it's actually simple. It's not something complex, right?
Well, I just go back to the name. You know, what does the name say? So,
you mean ARV?
Right. I mean, if that name is legitimate, then the implications of what that means is earth-shattering. And we just went over this 63 case from wherever this thing landed, originating from Cherry Point, North Carolina. If that is true, and they've been able to integrate it, and they've been working on it since 63, then there's no telling what they could have done by now with billions of dollars and all these scientists working on it.
Yeah, let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Michael Schratt, here to discuss that secret U.S. technology that may be in the skies right now. What are these UFOs and UAPs? I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Michael when we come back. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
The new KUNXDB, the UNX network, bringing you the best in paranormal programming in premium high-definition streaming audio and video. Log on to the network at unxnetwork.com and check out the growing lineup of programs, including Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and many more. Sign up for the free UNX newsletter, follow the UNX blog, or pick up the latest edition of the UNX magazine. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So check us out at unxnetwork.com. Tap the show page and the calendar so you never miss your favorite live shows and podcasts. We are your portal for all things paranormal. The X, explaining the unexplained.
Fade or not, When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now. Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Michael Schratt. Tomorrow night, Margie K is with us. Wednesday night, Dave Schrader. That's right. Darkness Dave will be with us. And then Thursday, Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving dinner, I'll be right here in the bunker for Fader night, taking all of your phone calls. Now, okay, so Michael, jumping back, you brought up Lonnie Zamora, and historically in the records, when you're pulling up these cases and looking at them and hearing about the Tic Tac, does that bring up, are we talking about what Lonnie Zamora saw, number one, and number two, what would that suggest about the Tic Tac? Are we talking about ET or us?
Keeping in mind what we just talked about here with the Temple, Oklahoma case. This was, again, March 23rd, 1966. The Socorro, New Mexico case was April 24th, 1964, just like 2 years prior to. Okay, so it's kind of the same timeline here. what I think is interesting, Jimmy, is that this case actually originated, and you can verify this on any map. Take a look at the boundary perimeter of White Sands Missile Range. If you go 5 miles west to the upper portion of White Sands Missile Range, that's where Socorro, New Mexico is. It is literally within 5 miles of the boundary of White Sands Missile Range. I don't think that can be forgotten. That should not be something that we underestimate. And also, according to Ben Moss, who wrote a brand new book about this whole Socorro thing, basically what Lonnie described is that prior to this thing lifting off, because he was within 24 feet of this craft, egg-shaped craft that had these landing gear legs on the bottom, there was a exhaust port on the bottom. He said that just before these two small-statured beings went into the craft, he said that there was a bang, and then about 20 seconds later, there was another bang. So it's like someone closed a submarine hatch door, and then they pulled a lever and latched this thing. That's what it sounds like to me. So a very mechanical thing. It doesn't sound extraterrestrial. Then he said that there was this frequency humming noise, sort of like a drill, that went from low to high, and then there was this blue-colored flame that came out of the bottom of this thing, and then this thing lifted off. Virtually the identical blue-colored flame on the December 29th, 1980 Huffman, Texas Cash Landrum incident. So we've got something that predates the Cash Landrum incident with the same blue-colored flame on the bottom of it that's coming out of an exhaust port. So if you add this all up, and just to complete this, if you look at the female indentations that are, you can make a mold from these things, and you can actually pour plaster mold and create your own mold from these things. And if you do a 3D rendering, you'll notice, Jimmy, that the landing gear pads associated with the Socorro, New Mexico Lonnie Zamora craft have these 90-degree right angles to them. And it just doesn't look like an alien landing pad. It really doesn't.
So moving forward to now with the descriptions of the Tic Tac, where our own government is saying that's not us, right? That is not our technology, but yet the similarities between these cases, the descriptions are just too spot on.
Well, again, we should ask, who is saying that's not us? Who is saying that, right? Because how would they have a need to know? And we could be dealing with Americans chasing Americans. You don't really think that they would tell our F-18 pilots if they're going to do a test like this? They're not going to tell our F-18 pilots. It sounds like they should, but they're not going to brief them in on a project like this. Because if it is reverse engineered from one of these crash retrievals, they don't have a need to know about this. You know, that's how deep this could be going here. We could be looking at Americans chasing Americans, and they don't even know what's going on.
Now, what about the description that came off of radar and visual testimony that the Tic Tac went from 80,000 feet to 29,000 feet and then hovered in some type of holding pattern in less than a second.
I'm glad you brought this up, Jimmy, because, and this leads us right into the next segment here. Now, just give you some background. There used to be a ufologist by the name of Gray Barker. I know you know his name. Most ufologists know about this guy.
Yep.
He died many years ago, but he left his collection to the Clarksburg, West Virginia Historical Library. And so there's like 18 file cabinets full of original UFO material. So, of course, I flew down there 12 years ago and spent 3 days looking through it. All I'm going to say is that it is a drug-ridden, dilapidated area. I just have to be honest with you. It is not a user-friendly environment to go there, but anything for UFO research, right? Okay, so there's 18 file cabinets. Within these file cabinets, and it took me 2 trips, I had to go back 3 years later, ago to get all of these. Now, there was something, Jimmy, published in weekly newspaper columns called Our Space Age that was written by a man named Otto Binder. He commissioned an artist to do these sketches of what was originally space-related things, but then later on it was completely UFO-related. So he has thousands of UFO reports pouring into Otto Binder. He'd write the copy, and then he'd commission artwork by a professional artist to do a illustration or a sketch based on the original eyewitness report. So going back to the Clarksburg, West Virginia Library, was able to secure copies of all 300 of these, Jimmy. And I want to go over just a couple of these things right here. Now, it bears a resemblance to what we're talking about here. So we're talking about the Tic Tac. There was a virtually identical Tic Tac sighting, Jimmy, on March 1967 in Wycombe, Pennsylvania. I've got the original report here. It says March 1967, Dawn Anderson of Wycombe, Pennsylvania, in daylight saw a gigantic Zeppelin hanging motionless among the clouds with 6 strange booms on its top. Okay, so Commander Fravor talked about how in the high definition resolution of the Tic Tac video, he said that he could see prongs or protrusions coming up from the craft itself. This is exactly what this lady is describing decades earlier in 1967, virtually the identical craft, Jimmy. And she also said that around the circumference of this quote-unquote Tic-Tac UFO, she said she could see rivets fastening this whole thing together back in 1967.
Now, okay, so we're talking, I want to be very clear here. What we're suggesting is an ET craft in 1963 in the Marine case, and then you're suggesting that the Lonnie Zamora Socorro case was our technology, and then moving forward to the Tic Tac again, that would suggest you're suggesting that that is our technology. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. The fact that she describes seeing rivets on this thing looks like to me that, you know, let's just say that the program started in 1954, where they made the breakthrough in October 1954. They would have had an entire 10, 15, almost 20 years if you just keep extrapolating this out. At the very minimum, a good 10 years of R&D that they could have worked on this thing with, from all these universities, maybe defense contractors. Absolutely, they could have made a breakthrough. What's going on at Los Alamos? Harry Drew can talk about what had gone there and where things were brought. That even ties into Scott and Suzanne Ramsey. We can talk about the Aztec crash retrieval, where that was sent. So when you tie this all together, it just looks like they've made a breakthrough, and they've incorporated the technology into man-made craft. That's what the evidence is showing us. Now, if we look at all of this in its totality, and bringing up Mark McCandlish, one more time, that the vast majority of flying saucer sightings, I'm talking about saucer-shaped craft, right? Some may be extraterrestrial in origin. Truly ET visiting us, but that like George Adamski and the other craft that were described are very close to the ARV, and we may be witnessing flying saucers, but it's us. But it's us, yes. Okay, I want to skip ahead because you just mentioned that. I want to skip ahead. I wanted to go kind of in order, but I'm going to skip ahead. Interesting you mentioned that. Okay, so let me hit you with this sighting, Jimmy. This is March 21st, 1950. Absolutely verified, and the eyewitnesses are impeccable credentialed eyewitnesses. This is the flight crew, again, March 21st, 1950, Stuttgart, Arkansas. So they're flying. It's 9:30 a.m., the sighting took place at 3,000 feet. I've got the newspaper clipping here, and what they describe, Jimmy, is a 90-foot foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It has a dome on top.
It has about 10 circular glowing white portholes on the bottom. It was going about 600 miles an hour and left no vapor trail. But here's the reference for it. This is Northwest Arkansas Times, March 22nd, 1950. Listen to what they say. This is the pilot and the co-pilot. This isn't me. This is the pilot talking here. Says, quote, "We firmly believe that the flying saucer we saw over Arkansas was a secret experimental type aircraft, not a visitor from outer space," end quote. Right there. I mean, coming from our own pilots, and they're saying, yeah, what we think that we saw, that was not ET. This is something we built. This is back in 1950.
Now, Kevin Day, who I've had on this program, 20-year Navy radar operator, knows signatures and knows what he is seeing, and his crew members are seeing on radar. And Kevin is pretty emphatic in stating that somebody would have let us know that they were testing on the Nimitz carrier group. That kind of testing, there's too many dangerous things that could happen. You're endangering the lives of the pilots, and you're flying aircraft around these other unknowns, and that we wouldn't do that kind of testing without some kind of notification ahead. And he is commanding, his radar operators, and also instructing when to put flights in the air. And those are his statements. And, I don't know if this is ET or us. I don't know. I wasn't there. But
you would think that they would brief, right, the pilots and the people on the cruisers and everything, but not necessarily. If you have the quote-unquote agency and they're conducting a test, they're not going to brief people in the air. They're not going to brief people on the ground. They're not going to do it. And, we have a habit of that going on. If you go back to the 1957 USS FDR case, where we had people going on that thing, pulling the tapes, pulling the radar from that case as well. That could have been another test. Who knows? But you would think that they'd want to at least alert them, but that's not necessarily the case. Because, again, if Americans are chasing Americans, then they don't have a need to know. And if they perfected the technology, it's no problem for them to run rings around our F-18s. It's not an issue to them. It's not an issue at all. It's not even a safety issue. That's how well perfected they have it.
Now, what about the flip side? Wouldn't we be using this tech around the world? Wouldn't there be sightings from Russia or China? Wouldn't there be a reference from another Tic Tac sighting if we're using this technology? Wouldn't it be, what's the advantage of having it if we're not using it?
Well, one part is that they're brazen enough to bring this technology out. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, in some cases, they're not going to pull this out to go get Saddam Hussein or Osama bin Laden. They're not going to waste their time because, again, we're talking about the crown jewels here. We're talking about the ace in the hole technology here. They're not going to roll that out just for a Saddam Hussein type scenario. That's reserved for absolutely controlling the high ground. That's what those things are reserved for.
And what would be the use of the Tic Tac?
Power projection, controlling the high ground in a battlefield, because once you control the high ground, you control the war. Absolutely. You got to have air dominance. And they'll stop at nothing to get air dominance. At nothing. Yeah, that'd be the first goal whatsoever.
But is the Tic Tac, what is it? Is it a reconnaissance drone? Is it armed?
Can't tell you. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Maybe they could use it for psychological warfare operations. That's possible. Who knows if it has a weapon system? Seems to have some type of a force field, but who knows if it has an offensive weapon system? Difficult to say, but I wouldn't discount it that it's Americans chasing Americans. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, it's something that we just can't rule out, though.
No, there's plenty out there that think it's secret U.S. tech, and it's not ET, and we're not going to have that kind of disclosure. But here's the flip side. Here's the rub for me, and I'm a skeptic on this. I am right in the middle. I don't know which way to lean here, but what are we doing? Still firing rockets up to the International Space Station if we have anti-gravitic tech that could safely take our crew members from terra firma to space and back in seconds.
Well, that's a whole other discussion, isn't it, right? Using liquid rockets and solid rockets. Why are we still using that?
Yeah.
Well, that's the biggest tragedy of the world, really.
Yeah.
We could have saved the Challenger astronauts because we already talked about how they were already looking and most likely reverse engineering these things in the 50s and the 60s. And Challenger happened on January 20th, 1986. That's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, that's the Mandela effect, by the way. I still think it was in 1985, but that's a whole nother story. The reveal of like the F-117, that surprised all of us. And that we had something like that. And what nobody else in the world was even close to us at that point. Would the Tic Tac suggest that we are indeed dealing with stuff that is not going to be revealed for another 50 years?
Well, you could say that we have assets that are still appropriate to keep secret about other people don't have them. Yeah, you could say that.
Would this also go back to something like the Phoenix Lights, where the Phoenix Lights, again, was our tech that flew over Phoenix and, down across Tucson?
Well, I wouldn't doubt the fact that they have perfected holographic image projection technology as well. That's something we should look at, too.
Yeah.
That's a whole different technology.
Yeah, I'm deeply interested in that. Now, when we hear things like the TR-3B, and that name is thrown about, I think, too easily these days. But when you have Belgium, you have the sightings over the United Kingdom, certainly across the United States, and David Marler and others, and you have spoken about these documented sightings going back. Is the TR-3B fictitious, or is this a craft that is real and not ET, or is it ET? What is the TR-3B?
Just go back to reviewing what the eyewitnesses had talked about. They said that they saw the tubes, pipes, and cylinders on the bottom of the craft, and they also reported a low-frequency electrical humming noise like a sewing machine or an electrical transformer. So again, we're hearing this evidence of a high technological, high-voltage electromagnetic field associated with these craft, and a lot of times when these things fly over, lights on cars start flickering. So there's some type of a CE2 effect associated with these vehicles.
And staying with the black triangles, we have the TR-3B, which to me is small, but we have these descriptions of these triangles, sometimes a mile long, occupying the space of covering a city, flying in the skies. Now, I'm not so sure. Would our Air Force actually have something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? Yeah. Well, think about it. What could you do with, let's say, 100 billion a year, 200 billion a year? Who knows? Difficult to say. I mean, I wouldn't put it beyond them, but that appears to be like the theoretical limit, right? If it's a holographic image, then it could be any size or it could be anything. But a structured craft being that large, difficult to say.
And
again, hard to prove that.
Well, we would, I think, eventually see something sitting on the ground, right, before it is flown. And
well, what if it's a USO though, right? If it's a USO, then there'd be no need for a hangar. No need for any kind of a above ground storage. So that's something to look at as well.
Now, what do you make of that? Let's stay right there before the break.
Okay.
The Tic Tac sightings have been nearly exclusively, except for, if we go back to the Lonnie Zamora, right? But have been involving the United States Navy carrier battle groups off of both coasts. And there have been suggestions from others, Lou Elizondo being one, that maybe these craft originate from the ocean.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jimmy, because I want to hit you with another Otto Binder case that I think plays an important role here. We have time for that?
We've got 3 minutes. Well, we
got 3 minutes. Okay,
we can pick up
Let
after
me hit
the
you
break.
with this one.
Sure.
Okay, so this is directly from the Otto Binder report. It says May 1967, and there's a drawing associated with this too. Mr. X, name withheld by request, of Anderson, South Carolina, was fishing on Hartwell Lake and saw an octagonal UFO apparently pumping up water through a metal tube. Mr. X was near enough to cast and strike the object, but nobody came out, and it soon shot away into the sky. That's not the only one of these water pumper UFO cases I've got. Even David Marler has water pumper UFOs. It didn't make it into his book, but he gave me the case. So that's 2 independent sources for these water pumper UFOs, which could be classified as a USO if it actually, was submerged and then came up onto the surface. And that's where this fisherman, he cast his line and hit it with his fishing line. So just another case of these strange, possibly USO craft.
I remember back in the 1890s, right? The airship sightings, and one of those, somebody came upon one of these airships that was next to a river that had pipes hanging off of it that was sucking water out of the river.
Well, not only that, there were anchors being lowered from these craft, and there were big black dogs on the deck of these craft, and they were shining high-intensity beaming spotlights on the ground below. And they also said that they saw, quote-unquote, well-dressed, eccentric inventor types with black top hats on the hull of these craft as well.
Well,
this is back in 1897.
Well, you have to remember what was popular then. You're going to associate, how would you be able to describe something, from something extraterrestrial or a being? You're going to associate it with what you see on the streets and what you see in the papers. So yeah, I've often thought about that. And the there were balloons and there were things that were in the skies. There's lots of things going on in France and the United Kingdom and certainly over in New York. But to have these giant airships seen all over the United States, I always found that very, very interesting for that time, where there wasn't any, of these balloon-type craft in the western United States at that time.
Well, they were in Oakland, Sacramento, San Francisco, all the way to the East Coast, and then they had very high-intensity spotlights beaming down. So someone figured out a way to have a mobile power system that would have generated enough electrical power to beam these spotlights down. That's something that's important.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, the one and only Michael Schratt, talking about this tech that is in the skies. UFOs, UAPs, ET. Is it us or them? Continue this conversation when we come back. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, The X.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UNX Media publishes non-fiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNXDB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Gold loves chaos, uncertainty, and disarray. History shows us what gold does when people aren't sure about the government, the stock market, their jobs, or their retirement savings. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against inflation and a stock market that might take years to recover. So what can you do right now to protect yourself? Call United Gold Group. We offer gold and other precious metals delivered securely within 72 hours. Are you worried about the stock market? We can also help you set up a real gold or silver IRA or a 401k. Safe and secure. United Gold Group makes gold ownership affordable. Call now and get up to $2,500 in free gold or silver with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. That's 800-753-8534 or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Michael Schratt. Always love it when he's on the show because I learn something. It's always about keeping your ears open. And Michael, do you expect to learn something where, you've got Gillibrand and Rubio attempting to get some legislation passed about not only UFOs and UAPs, but what the military is seeing, the effects and the health effects on individuals that come in contact with UAPs, and they want these reports to happen now. One of the things that I know that you're fascinated with is military and law enforcement and that eyewitness testimony when they encounter something. Do you expect more of this to become public?
I just think, Jimmy, that they're trying to rebrand this as UAP, and anything that happened prior to 2006, they're completely forgetting about it. They're rebranding it, and it's like all these other historical cases no longer exist. They're only taking things from 2006 and forward. That's it. What about all these other cases? They can't just, sweep those under the carpet and forget about them. They won't go away. I think they're missing out on so much.
And why do you think that is, though? Everybody is making that same point,
right.
Prior to 2004 and the Nimitz, that the UAP report only covers, 2004 and forward. But there's everything else to take into account here.
Correct.
Why do you think that is? Why are they dismissing it?
I still think that the giggle factor is in place, and they're trying to delegitimize these prehistory cases. And we can talk about one of these right here. I want to hit you with another Otto Binder case, and this is like really prehistory here. Okay, so here's the text on this one. November 13th, 1833. 1833 we're talking about here. A crowd on both the American and Canadian sides saw a peculiar square-shaped UFO hover over Niagara Falls for an hour, after which it sped away toward the ocean. So you've got this cube hanging over Niagara Falls for an hour. Multiple witnesses saw this back in 1833. Why isn't the U.S. Navy talking about this, or people at the Pentagon? I mean, these are historical cases.
Wait, hold on a minute here. 1833.
1833, yes.
Now, you're an aerospace, aircraft, air historian. What do we have in the skies in 1833?
Nothing to my knowledge that looks like a cube. This thing looked like an ice cube hovering in the sky above Niagara Falls for an hour back in 1833. Nothing that I know of.
Now, Margie Kay is going to be on the show with us tomorrow night, and she released a video that was sent to her a couple of weeks ago of a cube. A rotating cube. It's a fascinating video. I'm not sure what to make of it, but we also have some pretty modern reports of cubes coming out of the military, including reports off of the East Coast about fleets of cubes.
Well, there you go. So it's not unheard of. But to go back to 1833, I mean, that predates. We're way prior to Kenneth Arnold here. This whole concept of Kenneth Arnold spearheading and the origin point of ufology, it's completely false. This stuff goes way prior to that. Here's another one, Jimmy. July 1868. Villagers in Campezo, Chile, were frightened by a giant armor-plated machine covered with steel scales whose twin searchlight eyes stabbed down brilliantly. Back in 1868. This predates the 1897 mystery airship wave.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it had steel scales on it. Someone's flying this stuff.
And when I love these pre-modern, right? These reports,
right,
where you hear about them when they are trying to describe exactly what they are seeing, but they're having trouble because there isn't anything
right,
to compare it to. But yet they are seeing something in the sky, and they are doing their best to describe something that is completely unfamiliar to them.
Just to the best of their knowledge, they're describing it. Yes, that's correct. Here's another one, Jimmy. January 24th, 1968. At Indiana Pennsylvania, a witness saw a saucer hovering over a pond with 2 occupants who were apparently repairing their equipment. That's something we've heard about too. Like they're pulling levers, they're attempting to fix something. The source on this is George Fawcett, so there's a reference for it there. But yeah, I've heard multiple reports where, like these things land, they make repairs, and they take off before the guy can get to them. That's something we've heard of. Here's another one. July 30th, 1909. Waikaika Valley, New Zealand. Men aboard a dredge reported a boat-shaped UFO that circled all around with 2 human-like figures visible inside back in 1909.
Shag Harbor. And if we take all of the accounts of Shag Harbor and go back and take a close look at that, I think that the witnesses to Shag Harbor were pretty clear in saying that they were making repairs to that craft under the water.
Isn't that something? Yeah. Wow.
Right?
Isn't that something?
And if what would constitute the inability to fly in our own atmosphere? When you hear the skeptics say, look, man, you fly across the universe and then you crash your ship once you get here. Why would that be?
It's kind of screaming terrestrial. It really is. Or a pre-existing high-tech civilization that's already been living on this planet for thousands of years. They may be good, but they may not be infallible. Maybe they make mistakes. It's possible. They're definitely dealing with another level of technology. So it could be one of those two. The fact that they're repairing their craft, it just screams man-made technology. It just screams terrestrial technology.
If you, with all of your, now I've sat with you, I've seen your 3-ring binders, I've flipped through the pages. With all of that reference material that you have access to, what's the ratio of extraterrestrial to terrestrial?
That's hard to say, right? I mean, how would I know exactly which one is which? And I did write a white paper report, ours or theirs, and there's all these telltale signs that you can run through, like high frequency electrical humming noise, a fluttering flight path, CE2 effects on electrical machines like car engines and car lights, tubes, pipes, and cylinders. There's a whole series of things that you can gauge what apparently could be ours or theirs. I would say a good 80% ours, could be up to 90%. But when you get into these prehistory cases, then it's like they start falling off the radar screen. It starts getting questionable back then.
Leaning towards 100%.
Well, it sort of looks that way. Here's another one, Jimmy. 1882, near Ascension Isle, a British steamer came upon a gigantic UFO floating in the ocean at least 800 feet long, or nearly as big as the Queen Elizabeth, which slowly sank beneath the waves and vanished from sight. Back in 1882, an 800-foot-long USO that submerged.
Well, a lot of ocean out there. I mean, there's a lot. Okay, now let's shift gears.
Yes.
What do we do with the abduction phenomenon and those that have encountered extraterrestrial beings and possibly taken against their will?
Jimmy, that's just not an area of my expertise, but I have heard reports of some of that going on in the Hudson Valley where there are beings associated, but that's just not my area of research. Go ahead.
But that's not my question. What do we do with all of these reports? And if things continue and if we move towards disclosure like we are today, I mean, we are taking these giant strides. This is something else that has to be addressed.
Maybe that's one reason why they're not forthcoming, because they're trying to run out the clock on all of this stuff. I mean, they've already run out the clock on Roswell. There's virtually no one left now. There's no firsthand witnesses left anymore. I mean, they're basically all gone. Don Schmidt can fill you in on all that. We just got done doing a whole series of illustrations associated with the Roswell incident, but there's nobody left of the 509th Bomb Group that's alive to even talk about it anymore. First-hand witnesses are basically all gone. They have, Stanton always talked about how we're racing the Undertaker. Not anymore, we're not. The Undertaker won in this case. There's no first-hand witnesses left.
There's one fascinating statistic for me that I encountered firsthand, and because I'm a radio guy, and I love radio broadcasters, and I love the old shows. And if you go back and listen to Long John Neville from the mid-'50s all the way through to the end of his career in the early '70s, and all of his shows are archived, and you can go and listen to them. And he's got everybody on the shows, including Kenneth Arnold. Right? He even had on one of his great shows for me was Arthur C. Clarke in like 1958. Right? Okay. So, of all of those years, everybody on that show talking about everything from Nazi, UFOs and flying saucers and all of the sightings, and of course Kenneth Arnold, all of the famous cases, but they're not once was Roswell mentioned on the Long John Neville show. And the thing is, for me, Michael, going back directly to your point, the Roswell Daily Record and the radio broadcast and everything that was reported about Roswell in July of 1947 was out there, and all of the journalists were racing to Roswell, New Mexico, to get this thing covered. And then the weather balloon story comes out. There's nothing to see here. That case stopped. And nobody mentioned it. Nobody mentioned it until 1980.
Can we spend 3 minutes on Roswell, Jimmy?
We certainly can.
Okay, so let's do this. Now, I put this map together with Don Schmidt, under the strict direction of Don Schmidt. So it's pretty much been verified by Don. He will vouch for this. So when we talk about the Roswell incident, we need to talk about all 4 sectors of this incident on this map here. Okay, so I'm looking at a map of Roswell, and we always hear about the crash site. We hear about the debris field and everything. So I want to break this down specifically and where in the trajectory so we can get kind of a sight picture here. Okay, so the actual event happened 11:59 p.m. July 2nd, 1947. On the morning of the 3rd, that's when Mac Brazel and Timothy D. Proctor, who was 7 years old at the time, that's when they both came across that debris field and the 10-foot wide by 200-foot long gouge with all this debris. Okay, so that's like scene number 1 here. So here's something that people don't talk about. We know that the impact site was 35 miles north of Roswell, and the trajectory was from the northwest to the southeast, and it actually came to rest 35 miles north of Roswell. So if we backtrack the flight path, we end up getting to the debris field, but then about 5 miles north of the debris field, which is like no one ever talks about this, Jimmy. No one ever talks about it. There is another site called the touchdown site. That's where wherever this thing was appeared to have touched down, made contact with the ground, and fused the sand into green glass, the same type trinitite that we see at Trinity Site, where they have explosion of atomic bomb and everything. So there was fused green glass there, and that was confirmed by Louis Rickett and also Lincoln La Paz. And this touchdown site is also the location, Jimmy, where they found a small black seamless box. And to this day, I don't think Don Schmidt knows or anyone knows if that black box was ever opened. We have no idea what's in that black box they recovered, but they did recover a black seamless box about the size of a small bread box. That did happen. Okay, 5 miles south of the touchdown site, that's where we have the debris field. That's the common, everyone knows about the debris field. Now, if we keep heading southeast, we end up with the impact site where there were 2 bodies recovered and 1 was still alive. And they recovered an egg-shaped craft with a small dome on top with a hull breach. This was not a flying saucer. It was not a manta-shaped craft. It was an egg-shaped craft that was the size, basically Don Schmidt said it was the size of a Volkswagen. Now, 2.5 miles west of the impact site, you've got the second body site where 2 more bodies were recovered for a grand total of 5 bodies recovered. 1 was still alive. And the survivor, Jimmy, survived until May of 1948, and then he died.
Okay, so what's the fourth? So we have...
So you've got the touchdown site, you've got the debris field, you've got the impact site, and you've got the second body site. Those are 4 points. Those are the 4 scenarios associated with the Roswell incident.
All from the same craft?
All from the same craft, yes. So it's not just the impact site that we know of and everything. You've got the touchdown site, the debris field, the impact site, and then the second body site. There are 4 sites associated with Roswell.
And so going back to my point, how was it possible for our military to absolutely keep that under wraps until 1980? Where it's fascinating to me. Fascinating.
They didn't keep it under wraps because by July 8th of 1947, when the retrieval operation started going, it was already burning up the town of Roswell. The whole concept of a flying saucer coming down north of Roswell was burning up the airwaves, and all around it was a palatable bloodlust in Roswell at the time for people driving up there and to get souvenirs. It was just like permeating Roswell. So they didn't keep it a secret. But it got out.
But this is my point, though.
Yeah.
Long John Neville, who had the biggest radio show in the country, The Party Line, out of WOR in New York City, had on every ufologist, everybody that was a part of all investigations on his show 6 nights a week. And nobody, you can go back and look, nobody mentions Roswell. It's fascinating to me. I mean, it just blows my mind how...
Well, we know that when Sheriff Wilcox drove up to the site, there were already people there parked at the side of the road. They were already looking.
Well,
so they knew about it.
I guess you're not understanding what I'm suggesting here, which is Kenneth Arnold, multiple shows that he did with Long John Neville talking about the phenomenon. Mm-hmm. That how the Air Force was able, the Army and the military, able to squash this story because nobody spoke about it. Kenneth Arnold, it happened right after his sighting, and it was obviously out in the public. But when they are going back and discussing all of these cases on the Long John Neville show, it was never mentioned. And it's not mentioned in any documentaries. It's not mentioned in anything that was done in the 70s. It was just completely wiped.
There were multiple eyewitnesses on July 8th, 1947, including 2 paper boys who saw a military convoy that included 2 Jeeps up front, an 18-wheeler tractor-trailer lowboy, and then 2 more Jeeps behind that trailer, carrying an egg-shaped craft with a tarp over the top of it, going into Roswell Army Airfield, Hangar P3, Building 84. So there were multiple eyewitnesses that saw that for sure.
And the documentary called UFO from 1956, which I think is one of the greatest documentaries ever made, by the way. It's absolutely incredible, covering the entire phenomenon, including the 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO, multiple sightings. No mention of Roswell. And I just think to myself, how fascinating is this, where it's on the cover of the Roswell Daily Record 2 days in a row. and all of the and everything, and nobody brought it up historically until 1980. It's mind blowing. And if anybody ever wants to ask, well, how can it be covered up? Well, look at the Roswell case. I mean, that was effectively squashed completely.
If the Roswell case was just a weather balloon, why would you build a crate and load it into the bomb bay of a B-29 called Straight Flush? This would have been the night of July 8th and then the morning of July 9th, and then flew out the next morning. And why, if it was a weather balloon, would you have 2 perimeter screens with military MPs posted inside and outside of those perimeter screens with orders to shoot to kill anyone who tries to get near that crate that they built, that they put in atomic bomb pit number 1, which they later loaded into the bomb bay of Straight Flush. And then afterwards, when these guys were done guarding this wooden crate with the bodies in it, their clothes permeated with the stench of the decomposing bodies. The wives of the MPs had to burn their fatigues. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, it's still. I am completely blown away how effective it was squashed. And if anybody wants to go and look at any UFO documentary made between 1950 and 1980, there's no Roswell. Listen to any radio show, listen to any eyewitness, anything, any researcher, and nobody brings up Roswell. I mean, it's fascinating to me and how effective that campaign was. Do you think that that was starting in 1947, the way that they handled it? Because originally they broke the story. Charles Hout, he the PR guy for Roswell Army Airfield drafts the press release. It goes out, and that was an official statement on behalf of the U.S. Army, and then turning around and flipping it, the next day, and that's instead of going public, they decided to go completely top secret.
Well, let's keep in mind, too, that by 42, they already had 2 crash retrievals, right? Because we've got the Cape Girardeau, which is April 20th, 1941, and then the Battle of Los Angeles, which is 1942. So by 47, they already had at least 2 saucers in their possession. So they had some practice already.
Are you saying that we recovered the Battle of Los Angeles craft?
Yes, I am saying that. Yes, I am.
Okay, pump the brakes here, Schratt. Okay, let's talk about that. Sure. This is the first I've heard.
Yeah. Okay. Here, let me hit you with it here. Okay. So since we're talking about this, now we didn't go in order, but that's okay. So if you want to hear and learn about the Cape Girardeau, so that's where we want to begin here. Cape Girardeau UFO crash retrieval. It's the November 2001 MUFON Journal did a very good article. They interviewed Charlotte Mann, we already talked about her. She was associated with the 1963 via Melvin McNichol. Okay, so the scene is, it's around 9:30 p.m., and Charlotte was the granddaughter of a Baptist minister named Reverend William Hoffman. He's the primary eyewitness. He's long since gone, but Charlotte is still alive.
Now, he was the minister that they brought up to give these the last rites.
Well done, Jimmy. Well done. Yes. So he got a knock on the door at 9:30 p.m., and there was a police officer standing in the doorway. And he said, sir, I believe we have an aircraft crash, and we'd like you to join us just in case you're needed. They originally thought it was an aircraft crash. They didn't think it was a UFO. They didn't think it was a flying saucer. They legitimately thought it was an aircraft crash. And this is, again, April 20th, 1941. So he gets into the squad car. They drive across town, about 20 minutes across town to where this actually occurred. And when they got there, the military did not get there yet. So this is another instance where the military did not get there. What they saw there were some police officers there. There were a number of farmhands on site, and there were newspaper photographers going around with these flash bulb cameras and taking photographs of all this stuff, okay? And there were some burning flames and embers in the background. But then there was this approximately 35 to 40-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that was augured into the ground, you could say about 25 inches at about a 40-degree angle of attack. There was a hull breach on the side of the craft. Reverend William Hoffman stated to his family that he was able to walk next to the craft. He could look inside of the hull breach, and he saw buttons and switches and levers and dials, kind of mechanical looking. But then he said that there were three small-statured beings wearing tight-fitting blue flight suits, and two of them were dead, and one was still alive. He knelt over the one that was still living, and then it passed 60 seconds later. At that point, the military got involved. The fire department was on scene as well. And what's interesting is what they ended up doing is there were a couple of farmhands that picked up one of these dead alien corpses. It sounds too incredible to be true. So the scene is, on one side of this alien body, you've got this, farm person holding this dead alien corpse up under his armpits, and the other guy's doing the same thing on the other side. And they outstretch his arms, and one of these newspaper photographers snaps a photograph of this thing, okay? Now, Reverend Hoffman gets home, and he's shocked. He's shooken up. He brings his family together, and he states, I saw something today that is absolutely going to change my life. I'm going to mention it once, and I'm never going to mention it again. And he lays out the entire story to everybody there. And then, it's like he never talked about it again. 2 weeks later, Jimmy, that photographer that took that photograph knocks on the door of the Baptist minister, Reverend Hoffman, and he says, I have something for you that I want you to have. And he hands him the photograph of the alien being propped up, and that photograph that he took. Now, that photograph was handed down through the family. Charlotte Mann held that photograph in her hand. She actually held that photograph. And then somewhere, I guess it was early 1970s, not sure the exact date, but a quote-unquote neighbor who was a photography expert, he asked if he could borrow that photograph, and that photograph was never returned. So what I ended up doing with my good friend Tom Bogan is we put together all the information, and we created a replica. I know the listening audience won't be able to see this, but we created a replica of what this 1941 photograph might look like, including the aging. Now Charlotte said that it had scallops, like the old black and white photograph. They used to have scallops around the border. That's what this thing looked like. Of course, this would be over 70 years old by now and would be ripped up and faded. And so I don't know if you can see this, Jimmy, but this is the replica that we created here. I'm going to try to do a large screen here. This is it. This is the replica of what we believe that photograph may have looked like, with the being held up by the two.
Oh, I see.
Yep, you see?
Okay.
It'd be faded and ripped and scrapped and scallops around here, but that's what it would have looked like, similar to this.
That looks pretty authentic, man. That's a good job. Okay, so what Michael showed me, I pictured it the other way around, the opposite. So the being is being held up, and the being's arms, so the two guys are behind the being.
On the sides.
On the sides, and one is holding up one arm, one's holding up the other, and the alien is in the middle. About half the size of the guys.
Correct. Okay, so, Jimmy, what evidence do we have?
That's really cool, by the way. That was really cool.
Hey, man, we hit you with the 22-inch rims here, brother.
That was pretty
That's
cool.
Okay. All right, so what evidence do we have to back any of this up and then to tie in the Battle of Los Angeles craft? Here's where we're going to tie it in. Now, I spoke to Ryan Wood, and I said, Ryan, we've done all this research on Cape Girardeau. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. Our good friend Rush Limbaugh plays a role in Cape Girardeau too, because before Rush Limbaugh became the Rush Limbaugh that we all know and love, right? The radio announcer Rush Limbaugh. Before he was a radio announcer, he used to live in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and he used to be an umpire in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And in 1997, there was a caller that called in and said, Rush, I've heard this story that there's this UFO crash retrieval that took place in 1941, and they actually got the bodies and the craft. And is there any truth to that? And all he would say is, there's more of that story than you know. And he hung up. And that's the end of that. Man. Rush apparently knew something. Okay, so fast forward. Let's tie in Battle of Los Angeles here. I got this memo from Ryan Wood, and you can get it on majesticdocuments.com. And he said, here's the supporting evidence to both Cape Girardeau and Battle of Los Angeles. This is a retyped memo from FDR, so Franklin Delano Roosevelt, our president, to General George C. Marshall, dated February 27th, 1942. This is the president talking now. Here's the memo, and I'm going to just read the first part of it. It says, I have considered the disposition of the material in possession of the Army that may be of great significance toward the development of a super weapon. I disagree with the argument that such information should be shared with our ally, the Soviet Union. Consultation with Dr. Bush and other scientists on the issue of finding practical uses for the atomic secrets learned from the study of celestial devices precludes any further discussion, and I therefore authorize Dr. Bush to proceed with the project without further delay. Okay, so let me break this down. Look at the wording here, Jimmy. Look at the wording. First of all, they say material in possession of the Army. Okay, so there you go. They already have material as of 1942. That includes Battle of Los Angeles and Cape Girardeau. That would have been 41. Then he says the development of a super weapon of war. So they're trying to figure out how to reverse engineer the technology so that they can make a weapon out of it. And then they talk about sharing information with the ally, the Soviet Union, and that the atomic secrets learned from the study of celestial devices. Jimmy, who uses that wording? Nobody does.
Not 1942. Right.
Celestial devices is period correct for that time frame. There you go.
Now, the one part about the Battle of Los Angeles, which happened, right? That happened. Is that they fired, 1,200 anti-aircraft rounds at this and didn't bring it down. Fired at this thing for hours, and then there's no mention of it, right? I've often thought that they shot it down. They
did bring something down. They did recover something.
I mean, it's right there. It's not like it was, 10 miles in the sky. It was right there over Santa Monica. Clearly illuminated, went down the coast, went south to Cherry Hill, where at that time overlooked Long Beach Harbor, and was covered in anti-aircraft batteries.
Right here in this document, they say material in possession of the Army. They have something. Some type of physical material.
Now, which I'd like to kind of wrap up tonight, even though we've gone way over and I blew past a commercial break. Sorry about that. Is that going to the legislation that is being pushed through today? Do you expect disclosure to come from our government? Are we pushing them towards that, or is this an end around for them to say that yes, we're being visited by ET, but we haven't had the technology? Wouldn't that be the outrage if our government has been in possession of something that could be used to benefit humanity and they've kept it to themselves?
Well, we've already got the testimony from the Marine who's not only he guarded the thing for 2 weeks, so it sure looks like they've done it. Jimmy, it sure looks like they have it. Now, don't ask me, ask Jackie Gleason, but we can't because he's dead, right? But if you go back to what he was talking about, and I don't know if we have time to
Oh, we do. You're talking about Homestead?
Yeah, I think we should talk about this as well. Okay, so very quickly here, the time frame here is February 19th, 1973. Jackie Gleason is basically the host of the Inverary Golf outing. And so President Richard Nixon is there, and Jackie Gleason, as most people know, was a huge UFO paranormal proponent. I mean, he has a huge library. It was all donated to the University of Miami, and there's like 1,000 books on paranormal. That's well known. That's never been in question. So he basically, they were at the 9th hole, and the subject of UFOs came up, as it often does. And so Jackie Gleason turns to President Nixon and says, Mr. President, what can you tell me about UFOs? You're the president. You should know, right? And he says, well, Jackie, if you'll be available later this evening, I might be able to help you with that. So Jackie didn't think too much of it. They finished their golf game. Jackie went home. And then around 11 o'clock at night, there's a knock on the door. Jackie Gleason goes to the door, opens the door, and it's none other than President Nixon alone without the Secret Service. He drove his own car. And he says, well, Jackie, you know what we were talking about on the golf course this afternoon? And Jackie said, yes. He says, well, why don't you come follow me? So the president gets in the car. Jackie Gleason gets to the passenger side. They drive. Now, here's the thing. I've heard two conflicting reports. Number one, Jackie Gleason was living in Miami at the time, or Jackie Gleason was living in Inverary, Florida at the time. Either way, he was at one of these two locations, most likely Inverary, or it could have been Miami, and because it's important that we know where they started from. Okay, so they're driving, and they're heading south toward Homestead Air Force Base. They get to Homestead Air Force Base, and the guard recognizes the president and is shocked to see the president. He waves him through. They drive down to the opposite side, far end of Homestead Air Force Base, and then under a security guard and an usher, they are brought into a kind of a large hangar facility where Jackie Gleason sees not one, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Coke freezers, Jimmy. Vintage Coke freezers is the best way to describe these things. They have glass tops on them, and they are containing the mangled and burnt remains of childlike, quote-unquote, extraterrestrial beings. Behind the Coke freezers, there were multiple blue-colored bins containing what's believed to be the debris or crash debris from this retrieval. They're there. We don't know how long they were there. They get back into the president's car. He drives him back to Miami. He plops himself down on the couch, and when his ex-wife, Beverly McKittrick, his wife at the time, when he asked Jackie where he'd been, he was absolutely a changed man and was exhausted. And in a nutshell, that is the case. But I wanted to bring up just a couple of quick points here as we're rapidly finishing this here. Point number one, could they have done it? Could they have driven from Miami to Homestead Air Force Base? Keep in mind, this is 1973. It would have been near 12 midnight. It's a 30-minute drive to Homestead Air Force Base. They could have spent 10 minutes there and then drove back. They could have done it in just over an hour. So that's completely consistent with the whole thing. Next thing is, I've got the report here, and this is going to be from, and if I can get to this here, let's see, here we go. This is Dayton Daily News, May 14th, 1993. Jackie Gleason claimed that Richard Nixon took him to Homestead Air Force Base and he viewed alien bodies. That's written about in a book here, and it isn't just Jackie Gleason. Later it goes on in the second article here. This is the Times Tribune, July 5th, 1987. In her unpublished biography of the funny man entitled The Great One, Beverly Gleason's second spouse, describes a bizarre trip Jackie took with then president in 1973 to Homestead Air Force Base in Florida to see what she says were the bodies of 4 dead space aliens recovered by the Air Force. So if we could get a copy of her original unpublished manuscript, it helped to verify the story.
Well, Homestead is 15 miles from Miami.
Yeah.
So that's not a big deal. How far is it from Iverson?
Inverary, Florida is further north. It's further north. But if they departed from Miami, they could have done it. They could have done it in just over an hour.
Yeah, it's 15 miles. Not that big of a deal.
Yep.
Not that big of a deal.
Doable.
I don't, I just don't think Jackie would have made it up.
Nope.
It's too deep. There's too many crazy parts about this story that if you're going to make it up, you wouldn't say it this way. One, Nixon drove himself. Well,
right.
that's preposterous.
It's preposterous.
Right?
Yes, it sounds preposterous.
It just it breathes truth to me.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you would say the limousine pulled up, and I went out, and the Secret Service was there, and we rode down there in the presidential limousine. He would say it. It's something believable. Not Nixon shows up by himself and says, "Come on, I'm going to take you for a ride. Let's go."
Apparently, Richard Nixon had a habit of skipping out on the Secret Service, so it's not unprecedented. There's another article here, the Times Tribune, March 15th, 1985. It says, Larry W. Bryant, who is the director of the organization, wrote back that there have been reports that MacDill, Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, and Homestead Air Force Base near Miami have all served as way stations or temporary repositories for crash saucer artifacts. There you go. It checks out.
Now, have you been? Have you taken a tour of Skunk Works?
Me? No.
Have you been on the property?
I have technically not been on the property. No.
You want to go?
Really?
Yeah. You want to go? See, you deserve. I mean, and what about Edwards? Have you been on Edwards?
I've been on Edwards' property, yes.
And what did you see there?
I went to the Historical Archives Department, but it wasn't easy to get there. I'll tell you that right now.
And one day I'll tell you my Men in Black story. But yeah, you've got to come on up and let's hang out. We almost did this weekend, everybody. I'm just going to let you know that, but. We've got to do that very soon. And there's too much going on up here. I mean, there's just way too much. And for you, it's a kid in a candy store.
I mean, everyone's certainly welcome to go to Blackbird Air Park. You can certainly go there.
Oh, I did that the other day. Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, that's easy.
Oh, but check this out. Okay, I'm just going to tell the audience. You can look up Blackbird Air Park, right? Okay. So this is a Saturday night. This is a Saturday night for Jimmy Church. So I go out to dinner with some friends. And after dinner, one of my friends said, let show us the secret stuff. I said, okay, all right. So, and we did a drive. I took him over to Blackbird and made the left, and the entrance to Blackbird had the gate closed, which I was pretty surprised is public access. But right beyond that, there is a set of gates, and I had to make a U-turn. But I read the signs. That really freaked me out. And I mean, you're like, really? And it was frightening. And I had said to my friend, I said, I hadn't gotten that close. Had I been stupid and not taken a look, I could have driven right through that, and I would have been in some trouble. Anyway, so I made the U-turn. I said, dude, this is the night we get arrested. This is it. This is the night. And doing that at 10 o'clock at night in the cover of darkness and poking around over there is something that a black Jeep with fade to black license plates should be doing. But I'll take you right, and I'll show you the signs that I'm talking about. I don't want to say it on the air, but it was unbelievable, and I hadn't seen this particular entrance before.
Yeah, just I guess it's a safe move to stay within the boundary. You don't want to go beyond the boundary.
There's another, man, I swear to God, man, I'm going to get visited tonight. Next to, across the street from the Blackbird, they have two SR-71s there. Across the street, it's a white building. And no signs on it. And I read a couple of things. I mean, there's no, like, this is what the building is, right? A sign on the building. That's the FAA. What is the FAA doing, which is it's the Federal Aviation Administration? What is it doing next to Air Force Plant 42?
Good question.
Right?
Good question.
Full of cars, too. Man, tonight's the night I get shut down. Michael,
yeah,
thank you for another fascinating conversation, man. And I look forward to you coming out, and we'll have lunch, we'll have dinner, and we'll go poke around out here in the desert.
It's always good to be with you, Jimmy.
You're the best.
It's always good to be with you.
Michael Schratt. Michael, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you so much. Very good. Really enjoyed it.
What a great conversation tonight. And I blew past the commercials. I'm going to get those in now. And I will swing back after this short break. Michael Schratt. And again, go follow Michael on Facebook. I've got the links up. He would enjoy talking to all of you. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. I'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl, Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? Onyx Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNXDB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to forbiddenknowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30 days free. That's coupon code 30 days free on forbiddenknowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Yeah, I'm going to go straight from here to the outro. Want to thank Michael Schratt for coming in tonight. What a great conversation. And, man, he just knows so much about so much. But back to my little thing that happened on Saturday night before I get out of here. To be clear, you can look up the SR-71, the Blackbird Park. You can see it right there. And so anyway, I tried to get into the parking lot there, and it was the gates. I didn't know that there was a gate. I thought it was wide open. So anyway, I drive past it. I keep driving, then I see the sign, and it's right there. And I'm not kidding. Even for me, because I like taking chances. I like having fun, and that's what we were doing. But I slowed down, and I went, oh, wait a minute. I think we've gone too far. And as I take the Jeep and I kind of zig it out to the right so I can make this U-turn and get back out, I stopped and I was reading the signs. I'm like, oh, whoa. And even for me, I got a little freaked out. I mean, I almost went one step too far, a bridge too far. I almost drove through because it was open. You know, the signs were there, and I could see what was going on beyond, but I was just looking for a spot to turn around. And it was right there, man. It was absolutely nuts. So much fun. And somebody like Michael, who has been researching the aviation history, both military and civilian, for so long, and he's a pilot himself. It's a fun thing to do, just to go out and check this stuff out. But there is also this layer of secrecy, and it's a fascinating thing to see. It's right there. It's right in the public. What a great week! This is an excellent way to start off the week here on Fade to Black. But I want to remind everybody what's going on. Tomorrow night, Margie K. right here on Fade to Black. And then Wednesday night, Dave Schrader is stopping by for Shade to Black. And then Thursday is Thanksgiving. And after Thanksgiving dinner, I will be back here in the bunker hanging out with all of you, taking your phone calls all night long for a very special Thanksgiving Fader night. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What a great night on the show. I want to thank Michael Schratt for coming in. Oh, that photograph that he held up to the camera was pretty cool. That was pretty dang cool. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldridge. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR. for the Game Changer and UnX Networks. This broadcast on a copyrighted 2021 by Faded Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Faded Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. All right. The Observers now is officially available to rent. Click on the link below. You want to go check out The Observers? Rent it tonight. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Margie K right here. Until then, I want everybody to be safe. It's time to fade to black.